Welcome back. And we are still staying in Melbourne
Yes.
because we have fantastic Emmanuel Tissera joining us from Melbourne. Hi, Emmy.
Hi Purnima. Hi. How are
Hello.
you guys?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm good. I'm very well. Thank you.
Absolutely. So whenever you are ready, take it away and we can come back later on and have a little chat.
Oh yeah, that'll be great. I hope I can get a few minutes extra because I've timed it to the dot.
Absolutely. Whenever you are ready.
Yep. Good evening from Melbourne, Australia. Thank you for joining me today to learn about Mac architecture. First off, I want to apologize to the bard for appropriating the title of his play for my talk. Shakespeare wrote about a play about the different themes of love. And in this talk, we will explore our love of future-proofing our tech stack. With that apology out of the way, let's talk about what the acronym MACH stands for. Microservices, API first, cloud native software as a service, and headless. This is where I come in. I've been working with headless since 2016. I'm Emmanuel Tissera. I've been in software and web development for over 20 years now. In this talk, we will learn about MACH, the MACH Alliance, Frankenstack, and the composable DXP. I will talk you through a real-world MACH example and give you some hints on how you could future-proof your current tech stack starting tomorrow. We will then see what the future looks like for MACH in the Umbraco space. Let's get into it a little bit deeper and understand what MACH really means. We know that MACH stands for Microservices, API First, Cloud Native SaaS, and Headless. That's still a bunch of words. What do these words mean? Microservices. These are individual pieces of functionality that are independently developed, deployed, and managed. Usually, a single microservice will provide a discrete business functionality, for example, content management or e-commerce. The functionality of these microservices are exposed via an API or an application programming interface. A good example here is the GraphQL API exposed by Umbraco Hardcore. The API allows applications to retrieve content via an API call. These microservices should be cloud-native SaaS products. It's not enough that they're hosted on a cloud platform, but they should scale on demand and auto-update without impacting the end user. Think of your Microsoft 365 or Google Suite. When was the last time there was an outage due to a version update, or time when you couldn't access it due to scaling issues? It's almost unheard of. The last one on Mac is Headless. Headless allows presentation to be separated from the data. This allows decoupling of programming languages and technology frameworks. Your vendor does not dictate what language you write your front end in. A good comparison here would be Umbraco CMS to Umbraco Hardcore. In Umbraco CMS, you need to use .NET MVC to render the front end. But when it comes to Umbraco Hardcore, your front end could be written in React, Next.js, PHP, .NET, or even Rust. Building out a Mac ecosystem sounds like a lot of work. Why do we want to move away from out-of-the-box software? Why move away from enterprise suites, which give you all the functionality out of the box? Why do you want to call different APIs or compose different microservices when you can build a monolithic system which is simpler to manage? The idea is that the Mac ecosystem would future-proof enterprise technology. The Mac ecosystem speeds up rolling out current and future digital experiences. With microservices, they can be swapped and changed in an agile and nimble manner. Because the services are cloud-native SaaS products, they're always up to date. You don't need lengthy upgrade cycles. You don't need to stick to a release cycle. Since microservices are independent of each other, you don't need to wait for months and years to deploy a new or enhanced digital experience. The customer is king once again. They can choose the best of breed products rather than relying on their enterprise suite to provide functionality they have been asking for years. With the ability to swap and change microservices, the customer is no longer locked into a single vendor. For example, you can switch your e-commerce implementation to a different headless commerce engine without totally taking apart your application. This is the aspiration of the MACH Alliance. The MACH Alliance was formed 2.5 years ago with the mission to future-proof enterprise technology. Organizations can join the MACH Alliance either as a tech vendor, a system integrator, or as an enabler. MACH tech vendors, you can see a few here, are organizations that provide best of breed composable products. They are explicitly prohibited to market non-MACH products in order to qualify for membership in the MACH Alliance. For example, you can use the products from these vendors to build a composable stack with maybe Contentful to deliver content, Algolia for site search, commerce tools for e-commerce, and Personify XP for personalization. Then there are the systems integrators, usually large-scale digital agencies or IT service providers who have the knowledge and know-how to mesh those vendor products into a composable architecture. For example, Deloitte Digital may use both MACH vendors and MACH enablers to compose the tech environments for their clients. MACH enablers go beyond the traditional cloud storage and hosting providers. They support the functional areas of the MACH architecture, such as monitoring, tracing, and orchestration. For example, Netlify not only allows for hosting your website, but provides ancillary services to make the best use of your MACH architecture. So the MACH architecture sounds a good way to plan for the future. But if you paid attention, you would have noticed a missing logo in the MACH vendor section. So a $1 million question is, why is Umbraco not a member of the MACH Alliance? I can answer this from an outsider's perspective. Currently, Umbraco HQ offers support for Umbraco Core and sells Umbraco Cloud and Umbraco Hardcore. While Umbraco Hardcore is 100% MACH compliant, the rest of the portfolio is not 100% MACH compliant. So that does not allow Umbraco HQ to join the MACH Alliance. Does that mean we can't use the MACH architecture in our solutions? Before I answer that question, let's take a quick look at what we have sometimes done in the past. Have you ever built a Frankenstack? Some of you may be shaking your head saying no. That's okay. But do keep an open mind and see if you can relate to my story. Maybe you started off with a CMS to build your website. Then the business owner wanted to stream videos, so you added a custom streaming service that you built into the CMS. Then you created multiple portals for different customers and added functionality to pay a bill on top of it. Then they wanted to send SMS reminders to those customers who had overdue bills. The list goes on. I'm guilty of building such Frankenstacks in the past. I've even built Frankenstack on Umbraco some 10 years ago, and it's still thriving out there in the wild. 20 years in the industry, and there are definitely some skeletons of Frankenstacks in my closet. There are both pros and cons to the Frankenstack. The pros are that costs are less and having to deal with a single code base. On the other hand, releases are less frequent, tech debt is accumulated, and quick changes are hard to make. So, what is our alternative then? In my opinion, it leads us back to MACH. We should be using microservices, which are API first, cloud native, and headless in a composable manner. But we still have the question of Umbraco not being able to join the MACH Alliance as a vendor. Again, I don't think this is an issue since others in the same market space with products similar to Umbraco Hardcore are not members of the MACH Alliance. For example, Optimizely is working on being compliant with the CDIS standards for RESTful API data exchange, which is driven by the Osiris Alliance. So, while Umbraco might never be a part of the MACH Alliance, I'll be more focused on using the MACH architecture to enhance my Umbraco solutions for the future. This is what Umbraco HQ and other CMS vendors are now talking about when they talk about a composable DXP. Composable is such a buzzword that HQ even invented its own drinking game with it. Clearly, we will have lots of overhydrated people. Cheers. According to the Umbraco website, a composable DXP or digital experience platform is a platform that is comprised of best of breed modules or products. How do they work together? They are microservices connected via APIs in a headless approach. Doesn't that sound familiar? It sounds like the MACH architecture at work. Those best of breed products or modules are microservices. Tick. The best of breed modules in the composable DXP are connected through APIs. These can be either RESTful APIs or GraphQL APIs. Tick again. They use a headless approach where the front end is independent of the back end. Another tick. The only thing missing in Umbraco HQ's definition of a composable DXP is whether those services are cloud native. I believe that is implied. With HQ's push for hardcore and other cloud native integrations, this is a no-brainer for me. What are the advantages of choosing a composable MACH compliant DXP? It's a flexible DXP which can be customized to business needs. A composable DXP puts the customer first and the implementation timelines are short. They are the same reasons you would choose MACH as well. With the MACH ecosystem, you future-proof your tech stack. It brings in the composability in a composable DXP. We have learned about MACH, Frankenstack, and composable DXPs. So now let's look at a real-world MACH example. Luminary has a long-standing Yarport client who has been using a monolithic DXP for a few years now. When the time came for a platform upgrade, in order to stay with a supported version of the software, the client decided to ditch the monolithic and go with a headless CMS. Let's start filling in the blanks for this solution. Our aim was to compose a digital experience for the end user, putting together microservices, connected via APIs. These microservices themselves would have their own data layers and systems of record. Our first microservice in the mix was a headless CMS providing content delivery and content management capabilities via RESTful and GraphQL API endpoints. We also had flight data and indoor map data as systems of record. There was a custom-built flight information microservice which serviced the monolithic DXP, which we were able to repurpose here. Similarly, the indoor map was a third-party service accessed via an API. APM was integrated into the monolithic DXP as well. The MACH architecture let us repurpose this platform and even provide content from the headless CMS for marketing automation. We also had a travel time to airport API provided by the Department of Transport, which we needed to wrap in a proxy API, which we once again reused as a part of the composable DXP. We were already using SendGrid SMTP API, and it was a no-brainer to keep using it as well. Not long ago, this client moved from Salesforce to Dynamics 365. Moving that integration was a bit of a nightmare. But with a composable DXP, switching CRMs are not that hard due to how they're connected via APIs. We wrote custom APIs on top of the monolithic DXP to support the chatbot provided by Airport.ai. But with a headless CMS, providing content to the chatbot was not an extra job. This really showed off the power of a headless CMS to be omnichannel. With proper content modeling in place, we did not need to worry about writing new custom API endpoints. The general public who were physically at the airport were given free Wi-Fi access via a special page on the monolithic CMS. The ability to refactor that as an independent microservice has many benefits. For example, changing the physical Wi-Fi routers and Wi-Fi management systems does not mean that we need to update and make a new release of the website anymore. Finally, Algolia Search was integrated from scratch to replace the search functionality of the monolithic CMS. The MACH architecture allowed us to choose the best of breed search product rather than rely on a subpar out-of-the-box search implementation. With all of these composable microservices and APIs chosen, our next decision was which technology do we build the front end in? Since none of the vendors dictated which language or technology we had to use, we were able to choose Next.js as the front end framework, allowing us to build a Jamstack site. While this MACH architecture might not tick all the boxes, since some of them are not SaaS products, they are microservices, they are API first, cloud native, and headless. The microservices are hosted across different platforms such as Microsoft Azure, Netlify, and AWS. That example sounded exciting. All the latest tech and MACH architecture mixed in. But what if you still had to maintain and build on a monolithic CMS? Let's see how we can future-proof some of our old tech, even if we are not fully MACH compliant. It's very tempting and cost-effective in the short term to bake everything into the CMS. Do you need a page to process offline payments for a charity? Put it on the CMS. The hosting is already paid for. The libraries to interact with the payment provider are already in there. So the easiest option is to bake this unrelated functionality into the CMS. In an ideal world, this should be built as its own microservice, which can be developed, deployed, and managed independently. In this manner, you could start building a catalog of microservices. It might be cheaper on the short term to build your own microservice to provide some functionality. But in the long term, that piece of software needs to be maintained and upgraded along with its underlying tech. For this reason, where possible, use cloud-native SaaS products. You can find the best of breed products which are fit for purpose and meets business requirements. You're not saddled with upgrading these services in the long run. Don't code your own microservice. Search for SaaS product which satisfies your business requirements. If you can't find a compatible microservice, that's the only time you would build your own microservice. Monolithic DXP and monolithic software are synonymous with large single code bases. Moving away from a single code base is a good indicator that you want to provide discrete business functionality as microservices. This will allow you to develop, deploy, and manage functionality independently. With cloud-native SaaS products, you don't expect a downtime from your vendor. Similarly, automating your deployments and architecting your ecosystem to have zero downtime during deployments is something you should strive for. This automation indicates confidence in your testing regime and allows for more regular code deployments. When automating your deployments, also steer away from doing big bang deployments. Your deployments should be discrete units of work with feature switchers configured to turn them on and off. Moving away from large deployments allow for smoother rollbacks or hotfixes. This ties in once again with not having a single code base tied to a monolithic system. Purchasing or coding new microservices should not be done in isolation. Every new microservice should be added to a catalog in order to strategically manage, promote, and share APIs. Think of it as a shopping list for your developers and end users. But you may still have to deal with a monolithic CMS. Explore the possibilities of using headless APIs provided by the software vendor to move your front end away from the back end. This allows you to slowly become less dependent on the monolithic for your entire digital experience. The CMS is just another microservice providing content. This is implied, but move all your services to the cloud. Go beyond hosting and infrastructure. Leverage automatic scaling and orchestration for your enterprise applications. If you go about implementing those suggestions one by one, you can comply with the MACH architecture to a certain extent. This would allow you to future-proof your tech stack for the day you want to become 100% MACH compliant. Umbraco HQ has something on its roadmap to help us on this journey. The roadmap promises an extension API for Umbraco CMS, hardcore compliant to the Open API standard, and a headless API for Umbraco Core. These would allow other microservices to talk to Umbraco via APIs in a headless manner. Umbraco definitely has MACH on its mind as HQ looks at the future of composable DXP. So, what does your MACH future look like? Are you ready to take the first step in making your tech stack MACH compliant? While acknowledging that it's a lot of moving parts and points of failure, MACH allows for building out a composable DXP with the best of breed products. So go forth and build your microservices, which are API first, cloud native, and headless. Thank you for listening to me. I'd love to share your thoughts. And of course, if you've got some time for any questions you may have. If I don't get to answer your questions, please reach out to me on Twitter.
Thank you very much, Emmanuel. That was such a great talk. And I've been hearing a lot about this MACH thing, and I've not really understood it until now. So thank you. For me, because coming from a well, my experience outside of the Umbraco sphere has been with microservices and those sorts of architectures. This makes sense. People who are watching may know I'm a bit of a composable DXP skeptic, shall we say? But actually, this makes sense. This is fantastic. Oh, you yes. There's a few people that have posted in the chat and on Twitter. This is the first mention. Only an hour into the day, and we've already drunk. For those that play the composable DXP drinking game. Yeah, thank you. That was
and it's 9 p.m. here, so you know. This is
definitely.
water,
Yeah.
though, just to make sure everybody knows.
Definitely. Well, thank you so much for your talk, and we actually have a couple of your colleagues coming up as well.
Oh yeah, they're excited. They are, I would say, the first certified developers in Indonesia, and two ladies, and they are all excited to go. So
I think I'm
looking
personally
forward to
very
watching that.
excited to have them today.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to that talk. That will be coming up in a little bit on the block grid and doing some fancy things with graphs and yeah, within block grid. We're looking forward to it.
And all for a good cause as well. So
yeah,
you'll
fantastic.
hear more about it from there.
Hopefully you can stick around for that. And it's been lovely to see you, Emmanuel. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Callum. Thanks, Purnima.
Thanks, Amy. Bye.
See ya. Bye.